Hi everyone, welcome back to What Is This Weapon? Another special episode for you today with a special guest. This, if you don't already know him, this is Neil Aspinshaw, Martini-Henry luminary, I would say.
Thank you.
And author of this, The Martini-Henry for Queen and Empire, a superb guide to that much-loved British military weapon. Now, we have one of our top-rated or top-viewed videos, 1.1 million at the time of recording, is the video I did with the Harston quick loader, where we managed to cycle three, I think it was three before it jammed, second take.
You did well.
through that amazing sort of steampunk contraption that they came up with as adjacent in a way to what we're going to be talking about. We then did another video that's much lower viewed than that, and I think it's because I failed to mention the Pour Martini, which is outrageous. And that was the improved Lee. So this was essentially the first trials take at the bolt-action magazine-fed Lee pattern rifle. And even though it was very related to the Martini, I'm fairly sure I failed to mention it, which is probably why it hasn't done very well. So we're going to put that right. And the elephant in the room of the 402 caliber Martini-Henry is why Neil is here today. So what is 402 and why? I suppose is where we should start.
It all started with a letter from Colonel Henry Alderson in 1880. They'd looked at the kind of how the Martini performed over the last kind of 7 years in service. Obviously, it was developed to 1871, but it wasn't issued to the military until August of 1874. But we'd got quite a kind of busy period for the British Army between 1874 and 1880. We'd got the Perak campaign, we got Afghanistan, we got the Zulu wars, we got the frontier wars. And it was a
Afghanistan's second time around?
The first Afghanistan, in effect. Or is it the third?
In the 1840s, wasn't it?
There was second Afghanistan, or is it the third? I've lost track.
Let's leave that one.
Yes, part that one. So the British Army kind of looked at how the Martini fared during those campaigns. And one of the things that's kind of been written against the Martini over the time is it's kind of prone to jamming, the cartridges delaminating. Whilst it's got no real firm background, in reality, they were looking to develop it and take it further. So they was looking at issues as, can we make the bullet go faster and hit harder? You've got to think a Martini's 450, the velocity is 1,320 feet per second, which is about 400 meters a second. Now, if you're shooting at a target 800 yards away, it's going to take 2 seconds for it to get there.
And this is the trend across the whole of firearms history, of course, is smaller and faster.
Smaller and faster. So you've got to put this in perspective. If you've got a running skirmisher, I think Linford Christie could do 100 metres in less than 10 seconds.
I'm not advocating shooting at sprinters, by the way.
No, absolutely. But a cavalryman or even a fast-moving skirmisher, your point of aim in 2 seconds he's gone 20 metres from the point of aim. Yeah. So the intention is to get the bullet there faster.
And with less drop, presumably? Well?
Yes, absolutely. So 500 yards, kind of battle ranges. Battle ranges of Martini-Henry generally was 500 to 800 yards. That's when the infantry open fire. If you're lying on the ground shooting a target at 500 yards, the bullet's going to go 8 feet in the air to come back down again. Its apogee is 8 feet. So the whole intention is to make the bullet go faster and bring the battle ranges down closer. So rather than 100 yard zeroing, which the Martini is, and after that you're starting to elevate, the whole idea was to bring it to 300 yards.
I think we do have one of the rounds we're talking about there.
That's right.
If that's useful to wave about on camera. But this is one of our seal pattern ammunition examples. So hidden in here, away from damage, is a wax seal, label with the information of which particular variant this embodies, and it's inert, of course, as well. So that's the round we're talking about. Moving away from.
So we needed to go faster, less apogee on the travel. So we developed it to make the Martini case smaller to 400 caliber, 40 caliber in effect. 402 is the nearest equivalent, and the whole idea is to develop the round, bring it more up to date. So it's only been in service now for 7 years. We're already finding issues. Other issues we're starting to find is that the rifle gets quite hot. 40, 50 rounds, it's not unmanageable, but it's hot. If you're going to have to fight at bayonet point with a red hot barrel, it's going to be difficult.
I mean, even the small volume we did a little bit of shooting with that Harston video, and every time we shoot a handful of rounds, you very quickly notice that cross pin in the forestock. If your hand happens to be on that, you go, oh, that's a little what? Because imagine after another 40 rounds.
Yeah, of course.
Toasty.
The men in the field, and it's noted from Afghanistan, they were using the paper packets of ammunition as hand shields. Because
I mean, you've done a ton of shooting.
Oh yeah, and 30 rounds is no problem in a T-shirt on Sunday morning in an hour, which is about 30 rounds an hour is quite fast for Victorian battle conditions actually, in reality. Apart from say Maiwand or Rorke's Drift, where the men had actually fired about 250 rounds per man in 3 hours, which is a phenomenal rate of fire.
We always fixate on these outliers, though, don't we? So it's same whether it's talking about failures of the weapon or its plus points, its capabilities. We're always focusing on those edge cases, and we should be, as you have done in the book, look at the whole picture.
Yeah. So similar battle in the Zulu Wars, Kambula, the average man only fired 32 rounds in a 2.5, 3 hour engagement. The British Army had a controlled rate of fire, but there's particular periods like at Maiwand and at Rorke's Drift where it was a blast fest. Although at Rorke's Drift, the average expenditure per man was only about 20 rounds per hour still, which is still pretty fast. But they tried to overcome this problem. The men fashioned a leather hand shield up in the field, like a cowhide wrap. The men knew it got hot. It wasn't adopted as a pattern until 1881, but the principle was there. So it was looking to eliminate the heat of the barrel. We was looking at other things, ejection qualities. There were a problem with jamming, and it actually manifested later in the Sudan, which actually proved a completely different animal altogether. So we're looking the long-range sighting. Could we improve the sighting? So they've taken the service Martini and they're trying to make it better. So they started to experiment with the .402 caliber cartridge, this one in particular. Now, solid drawn to eliminate the problems, de facto problems with the foil case, but also they're looking at ways of bushing the original rifles to take this round. So they're actually looking at bushing rifles as trials to see how it goes. And they, first of all, in 1881, they developed the first pattern .402 rifle, which we have a sample of today.
We do. Before we get there, I suppose we should. So the comparison we can do on the table here is a trials .402.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So basically, what it is a shrunken down boxer cartridge, bottleneck shrunken down cartridge.
You can see how similar they appear on the
Absolutely, solid drawn. The idea was to harmonise it with machine guns as well. So they were looking to have a machine gun and an interchangeable rifle round. So they was trying different things. They tried originally bushing
Some things never change. Back to that again.
Back to that again. So the original trials were the .450 Gardner Gatling round, which were similar to the Martini. It actually shot better with the Gardner Gatling round than it did with the Boxer.
Did it? Okay.
So they bushed the rifles to suit the Gardner Gatling, which was a solid drawn case. And the difference with the Gardner Gatling is it was a tapered case because they tumbled. If they tumbled as they came off the Broadwell drum on the Gatlings, so there was lots of chance to kind of harmonise what was going off. So you've got two types of ammunition.
Yep.
So in the battlefields, if you're out there with a box of ammunition, if you've got the wrong one, you've got a big problem.
Yep.
So the idea was harmonise everything, go from .450 calibre, 5.77 .450 down to the .402 solid drawn.
And you really have to mic these up to be sure that you're looking at the right. Or I did anyway. You knew on sight, but I had to. They're very similar.
They're very similar.
But it does develop further away from the 4.5 later on, doesn't it?
Yes.
We can show some images of that.
So the weight of bullet, in effect, is the same bullet. It's a kind of the Martini, the standard round is about 480 grains of lead. The .402 is about 420 grains of lead, which is what the carbine round was. So it's the same kind of hitting power, and the same powder charge. There's a packer between the two in the .450, so you've still got 80 to 85 grains of powder in it. So you get an increased velocity, smaller velocity, and as probably equal hitting power in effect.
Yeah.
So we're going to develop a rifle to suit the forthcoming cartridge.
So this isn't like the big shift from something like 7.62 NATO as a primary rifle cartridge to 5.56. It's nowhere. They're not sacrificing quote unquote stopping power. They're just sort of finessing what they already have.
Yeah. So field experience, we've got 7 years experience now. What they weren't prepared for was what's going to happen in the next 5 years in the Sudan. The Sudan rewrote the history of the Martini-Henry in many respects, and it's changed everybody's perception of it. So much has been written about the kind of the maladies, the problems, the foreballs with the Martini-Henry, which manifested itself during the Sudan campaign. There's one condition: sand.
Mm-hmm.
Impalatable sand. The desert sand is a bit like talcum powder as we'd know it today, and it got into the action.
Yeah.
You've got to think this rifle, the Martini was designed as a rifle to fight in all circumstances. You know, sand, snow, desert, everything, jungle. And during that first kind of 5 years or 7 years of service, it was fighting in snow, jungle, desert. And we're getting there. So we're trying to develop it to bring it up to date. And of course, what's happening in France and in Germany, French are looking to going towards the 8mm Lebel. Things are moving fast now. There's kind of, so
they really are.
So, but 402 was the desired cartridge. We were going to go with that.
Yeah. Right. Let's get a gun out.
Yes.
So here we go. First up, I can already see some things that have changed. Run us through it.
Okay. So we're now looking at all the developments that Alderson spoke about. We're looking improving the action, improving the heat protection, improving the sighting, improving the calibre. So this, in effect, was going to become what was known as the Martini-Henry Mark IV. The idea was it's a 402 Mark IV pattern, which latterly we adopted, obviously, in 450. And it showed, this is the kind of first prototype we're working at, and we're looking at different actions. One of the things Alderson mentioned was making the rifle ambidextrous, so they increased the grip by altering the nocks and the receiver grip, so you've got an enhanced thumb grip. The British Army, you had to fire right-handed, but in some of the continental forces, it didn't really matter. So if you're left-handed, like I'm a raving left-handed shot, I like the Mark IV because I've got a good grip on the Mark IV. So we're developing the action. We're developing...
And that's not... when I first saw this, my immediate assumption was strengthening.
No, if
it's not that.
De facto, it actually weakened it.
Oh.
They found with the Mark...
sense, actually,
because, yes, they're taking a big chunk of metal out of the action here.
So this is ergonomics.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's reducing the weight of the rifle.
True.
So the first thing they're looking at is it's a 402 calibre to take the pattern round we've looked at. But all the other salient features are exactly the same as a standard Martini-Henry. There's a cocking indicator, which shows it's cocked and ready fire. There's no safety. And one of the big issues were with these, there was no safety. So we're looking at developing a safety catch for it.
Except for that troop trials.
For the troop trials, absolutely,
right.
yeah.
I won't confuse, I've already confused matters. I'll shut up.
There's a wooden handguard.
Yep.
Now, which is moving very much towards a SMLE type of handguard. So we were getting there. The handguard's held on. The bands itself, the barrel bands, is kind of holding the whole handguard on. So you've got a wooden handguard protection, because if you're fighting at bayonet point, you don't want a red hot barrel.
Absolutely not.
The sighting's been improved. There's a very close range sight.
That's very modern.
Very close range. And in actual fact, they found during the trials it was too close. It caused blur. But one of the most important things is we're opening fire, and engagement now is 1,000 yards is not unusual. You've got to think, we talked about the apogee of a 450 rifle at 8 feet. At 1,000 yards, it's more like 25 feet. So the rifle is almost at 45 degrees. And what we developed with the 402 is a trial hanging sight. Okay.
I can see it. You can't see it yet.
Yeah. Unusually, this looks a bit cumbersome, but if you think of the dial sight on a Lee Metford, and even on the early pattern SMLEs, they use the similar principle with a peep sight and a dial.
Heck, they put that back on for the troop trials number 4 as well. So they were very keen on this idea of long distance.
Absolutely.
Until they weren't.
Yeah. So we developed what's called a dial sight and a hanging sight. And the idea was you could open fire now at 1,500 yards. Aiming is practically impossible, but when you're volley firing and there's 100 men in a company firing together, the whole idea is to accurize the range and hope you hit something.
It's an area effect, essentially.
It's area effect, yeah, it's area firing.
Should we spin this round so people can see? So, well, first, I guess we're going to have this flip up, adjustable. Oh, we're coming to that.
Yeah, that's the standard. That's in effect your standard kind of leaf sight.
Yeah.
So it's sighted to 800 yards. So you can see that's actually a movable leaf
get
sight.
That to move.
Yeah, it might be bound in. Again, it was very close.
Should slide.
The reason being is, but the kind of the standard, you can see there's a kind of stub sight on here. The battle range is 300 yards. They wanted a rifle that was given a straight trajectory at 300 yards. So there's no real need for the leaf sight at this point.
Sure.
They're looking to zero it at 300.
If I can think that's a bit gummed up, but you get the gist. This slides up and down to provide you much as other weapons. But if we fold that back down and go back to what we were just talking about, we can see, well, most obviously at the front, we've got this pivoting.
That's the dial sight
here. So this is actually installed upside down, we've realised. Thus, unless you want to shoot at moles or something, it's not even going to work for that, is it? Yeah. No. This is the wrong way round. So we're going to jump to, don't look at the whole thing, because we're going to jump to a different rifle, but it has the same sighting setup, so we can explain this better.
So the whole idea with these long range sights is there's a peep sight at the side of the rifle here, which folds out. So the rifleman would set the long range sight to say 1800 yards.
Yep.
He would then set the barleycorn with the windage adjuster on there. So it's windage adjustable. So you think at 1,000 yards, the windage is going to take the bullet right across. You would set the sight to allow for windage.
Let's do that on the other rifle, just so we can demonstrate
and you peep through the sight, which would give you the same sight picture, but effectively the rifle is elevated, but you're looking straight at what you're shooting at.
Exactly the same principle as the dial on the side of the later.
Absolutely. So they're getting there, but didn't quite know how to do it. An interesting story to this. This was invented by Major Fraser, who was quite a shot. In fact, he showed his shooting prowess by shooting flies on the wall with a miniature rifle in his billet in India.
Well, that's one of the more Victorian things I've ever heard. So we'll just swap this over temporarily. In fact, no, what we'll do is leave it on the table, because there's another thing we need to talk about before we do that. But what I really want to show you on the camera is what Neil's talking about here. So this one's set up correctly. Ignore any other features you happen to spot, because we're coming back to this one. But here you can see how it's supposed to work. So it pivots down and then flips out.
The range is graduated, say, to 2,400 yards. Yeah. You set the range bar at 2,400. And then you'd flip out the sight, flip sight, which has also got a notch on there. So you reverse notch, like looking straight down the barrel, but you're now looking at the target, but the rifle is elevated. Yep. So you've got a line of sight there, the rifle is elevated like that.
So we go from using either the battle sight or one of the settings on this. Now this leaf is bent, but it does move on this one. So let me just quickly demonstrate that. So minimum setting there, do you remember how many yards without looking?
800.
All the way up to that at the top, although it must have been slightly below that, I guess.
Yeah, you could use the later versions, you would use the leaf sight. The earlier versions got a notch in the top of the sight ladder.
Makes more sense doing it that way, but we can just see, so 1,000 at the very top
at the very top of the ladder, yeah.
Which means you're peeping through this little notch here.
Yes.
Under the top of the ladder.
Yes.
So that's you go from minimum to maximum, then you fold that back down and you transition to this peep sight, looking through that notch onto this, as you say, replicated barleycorn of the main front sight. There's now a little baby barleycorn on this, which is windage adjustable, which I'm adjusting manually next to my ear here. So really very sophisticated, and we'll get you a good view of that, hopefully. And the range of adjustment, so there's a locking nut here.
Yeah.
So if we back that off, we can, whoops, it needs to go quite far off actually, there we go. Then it's fully adjustable from the stowed position, obviously with that folded up as well.
Yes.
This one's in quite good nick. And so we drop it down to whatever range setting, up to the maximum of how far did you say?
About 2,800 yards.
2,800. So same as on the later Lee series dial sights. But again, we have this flip down adjustable front sight. So in a way, well, more sophisticated / complicated than the later dial sight.
Yeah.
I see why you say hanging sight as well, because it literally does hang off the end of the barrel.
And the issue then they found that you couldn't fit a bayonet with that because it blocked the bayonet access point to the bayonet bar.
Right.
So there was lots of kind of changes. So the idea is you've got 2,800 yards. Now, a Martini bullet at 2,800 yards is practically falling out of the sky. But the principle is they called it a musketry shower, oddly enough.
Sounds pleasant, doesn't it? The musketry shower, but it wouldn't be very pleasant to be under it.
That's right. And they tested this in India to 2,800 yards, actually firing over a hill line. And
That's fascinating, actually, the idea of indirect fire over cover.
Over cover. So they had paper targets on the top of the hill line and chatties, which is kind of stoneware jars set like dispersed infantry behind. And surprisingly, the hit rate was actually 15%, which is quite good.
For blind fire, essentially.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, no, literally blind fire in that case.
But the reason this fell from favour, the kind of long-range sight, is that they realised that anything less than 1,400 yards, the bullet wouldn't actually ricochet. And it's secondary injuries caused by bullets ricocheting that is the effective, makes it more effective. Once it's fallen out of the sky...
I hadn't even considered that.
No, so they looked at that. So they wanted it to go faster. So even if it hit the ground, it would bounce up and ricochet.
Like cannonballs skipping off the ground. Yeah. Wow, okay. So let's put that one away because it's otherwise misleading. That's sighting. So we've got calibre improvement, which is hard to sort of directly show, but trust us, it's a 402 chamber.
Yeah.
We've got sighting improvements, both to the sort of standard closer range sighting and to this longer range sighting, albeit that leaf ladder blade thing is upside down on this one for reasons unknown. That's sighting. So, bit of an elephant in the room here, because we've said the Martini doesn't have a safety, apart from that troop trials thing, except this one does, doesn't it?
It's somewhat ad hoc, you could say.
Feels ad hoc.
Yeah, it's a bit of an afterthought. It's called the button safety.
And that's because it's round like a button?
Yep. And the whole idea is it flips forward, so it prevents your finger from accidentally catching the trigger. So that would fold forward. So they worked on a theory that if you can't catch the trigger, it ain't going to go off.
So that's the safety on. The trigger is...
Even though if the rifle's cocked, the main issue with the Martini was the accidental misfires. They tested them originally because they saw the early Mark I pattern Martini that they had a tendency to go off. And the topical, yeah, because
moving on,
yeah. So the idea was is if the rifle was cocked and ready to fire with a cartridge in the chamber, even if you dropped it on the ground, it wouldn't really go off. It was quite a strong action. However, it accidentally catching the trigger with a piece of webbing or anything like that, which would cause it to go off.
Perennial problem with military rifles. So, and the way that's dealt with, so we have this big tab, which I guess is just for ease of operation.
Yes.
It then, so flip it round, move our label out of the way. This, if I can, this pivots. So it's got a nice big platform for you to push out the way with your, or into the way, sorry. So safety off.
Off, and then push it in the way of the trigger.
Push it that way, and it quite handily flips round. And the bit that's doing the safety is the flange on the back of the button.
Yes. So you effectively can't inadvertently catch the trigger.
Yeah. That bit goes behind the trigger, blocking the trigger from full travel. It still has about half travel, I would say. Now on this one,
accidental discharge is the idea with this.
It is, but the way it's doing it is by blocking the trigger from going far enough back to drop the striker.
Drop the striker, yeah.
Yeah. So this one is a little chunky, I think. It's not quite going. I don't want to force it.
No.
Not going all the way into play.
It would go behind the trigger. Yeah. So that it would give you, the trigger would move slightly, but not enough to clear the sear, which would then engage the firing mechanism.
Try to demonstrate that there. So comes back perhaps further than you might think. It probably would go less far if this thing was in its full rearward position. But you can see hopefully how this works. Let's just spin it around and get you a close up. So there's the button. Pivots on the bottom of the trigger guard, drops into place behind the trigger, and I suppose it blocks the trigger from full travel, but it's also a bit of a tactile reminder that it's in the way.
That the safety is on.
This label is a real pain. So when it's in place, this one I think slightly bent, which is because the sheet metal it's made from is really quite thin.
Thin, yeah.
So you'd reach for the trigger and you'd feel a bit like an M1 Garand or an EM2 safety actually. You'd feel that it's there and you just flick it out the way.
Yes.
And crack on.
Yeah. So you can see now they're kind of developing the arm. These are all experimental. Mm-hmm. You've got to think this is not an adopted rifle, so we're trying to get there. And this is the 1881 pattern.
We also have, correct me if I'm wrong, as well as the handguard you mentioned to alleviate heat this way, we also have the wood relieved here.
To eliminate, so the barrel then is allowed to cool So unlike
So the opposite approach to this.
the opposite approach. So, and also they said it made it easier to clean.
Yeah.
So rainwater would trap underneath. So the barrel is not supported. It's actually the fore-end wood is just running underneath the barrel. It's not, the barrel's not sitting in a channel. And so the idea is this dissipates heat. This prevents that heat from burning your fingers.
Mm-hmm. And we see this on the other 1880s trials rifles. In the other video, and actually on those guns, you can see there is a real air gap.
Yes.
Depends on how they've been put together, but the critical thing is to keep to minimise contact to prevent the wood from, well, ultimately burning, I suppose.
Yeah.
The other thing you could have done is put some fluting or some ribbing on it, which would have cost you an absolute fortune.
Well, oddly enough, this the original pattern used asbestos. Now, people think asbestos is a product of the 20th century. It's not.
No.
They used asbestos underneath the wood to give a shield. So it's basically like an asbestos rope underneath. So again, mask on if that comes off, Jonathan.
Oh, that's going to incur a significant amount of paperwork, I suspect.
I would think that's probably not got it.
Right, so what's next?
We've then got the 1883 pattern. So big changes at Enfield is now taking place. The Fraser, the original superintendent, was replaced in 1880 by Colonel Henry T. Arbuthnot.
Love the name Arbuthnot.
Arbuthnot,
Yeah.
ex-Royal Artillery officer. He'd been in charge of the stores at Weedon for some years, so he was promoted to factory. He was quite forward-thinking, and he was developing Enfield into the kind of the super factory it was going to become. He introduced new lighting, new barrel boring machinery. He was quite cutting edge. He was keen on that, and he was a real advocate of the 402. It was his brainchild, is his baby, and he wrote lots of reports about how it was developing. He was quite enthusiastic about it, and I think that was the problem, that it was Arbuthnot's. He wanted it. He really wanted it. But things were catching it up, but he didn't quite know it.
Yeah.
So we then get to the 1883 pattern. So 2 years down the line, that original one was trialled, then we go to the 1883 pattern.
Which is also the one you just saw with the dial sight, or hanging sight.
Hanging sight, yep.
So not ignoring that, because they're carrying that over.
Yes.
What's the next step? And I noticed this is an old style action.
It is an old style action. So this is built on, this was the idea, first of all, to develop the Mark III rifle, which was the volunteers, to bring this into 402 as well, and adding on the features of the other. So it's a bit more of a simpler version, because we were running two designs. There was a very sophisticated pattern for the military, for the frontline soldiers. Then there was a slightly less sophisticated pattern for the volunteers. The Mark III rifle was developed for the British Army as a volunteer rifle. The Mark II was the predominant service rifle. The Mark III was brought out wholly to arm the volunteers.
I either didn't know that or had forgotten that. I mean, I must have known it because I've obviously read your book.
Yeah.
Let's just show that. This is, in fact, a Mark III receiver, 1880 dated.
Yep.
And you can see that you have the classic thumb rest and not the hump
Yes.
on the receiver.
So we're looking to develop both patterns of rifle. We're moving forward at quite a fair pace now, but they're looking to develop the Mark III as with the same features, salient features of the infantry rifle, but at a cheaper cost.
Without the heat protection.
Without the heat protection.
So they don't care about some burnt hands in the...
Not if you're a volunteer.
In the volunteers. Poor volunteers. But we do have 402, improved sighting as demonstrated. I noticed we have the scar of the removed sights there.
Yeah. So it's kind of, the whole thing is moving along now, but we still haven't. The button safety was a disaster. They proved that. It's just so prone to.
So they haven't incorporated
They've
that
not
on here
incorporated
either.
that into there. But they're starting to look to develop the rifle, and by 1884, the rifle was started to be perfected, and a pattern was brought out, and which ultimately became the 1886 pattern when it was developed, which is the final service arm. Two of the things that changed in particular. The Sudan breaks out, the fighting in the Sudan, and this is the game changer. So there's reports now flooding in from Egypt and to Sudan about jamming Martinis, problems, the Battle of Abu Talaya, and the kind of the Gatlings jammed and the colonel's dead. And it's, the big problem is, as it is today, is journalists. And journalists went out on the Sudan campaign and they came back, they're flooding London and the Times and the Telegraph with reports of jamming Martini-Henrys and bending bayonets.
Yep.
So we had to think, what is going on and how can we develop it? So they're now taking this rifle and starting to break it down and finding out how do we eliminate this, how do we eliminate that. So then we get to the 1884 pattern rifle.
And they presumably know at this stage that these reports are overblown. Do they realise that, or do they not?
It's sensationalisation. It happens all the time.
They know. So they know there are real problems, but they're just happening at a much lower rate than is being implied by.
Being implied by.
Okay.
But there's
so real things that need solving, but maybe their minds are focused by the amount of negative press, and presumably feeling amongst the troops as well.
Absolutely. It resulted in 1885, after the Sudan campaign had more or less completed. It wasn't over completely because the Egyptian forces were still fighting, but the British forces had kind of withdrawn from Suakin in late 1884, 85, and they're bringing rifles back. They're bringing them back to see what has gone wrong here. And one in particular was brought back to, and Colonel Arbuthnot was called to Bagot Street in Birmingham, the small arms repair factory. And he took some rifles to bit and he wrote a fantastic report about what he's seen. And a lot of the issues about the cartridges jamming, yes, there was jamming, and it was mainly always to do with sand and the fine sand. But when he took
which will jam almost anything.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, they used to sweat the rifles on the runways, didn't they, to get rid of the oil, because the oil attracted the sand, and it was nothing unique in the Sudan in 1880 to they had in Afghanistan in 1990.
Problems with the SLR in the desert, hence the sand cuts, and then again, very much so with that. Now, SA-80 brought its own issues to the table, but it was that sort of sand that in the Gulf, not as talky, I don't think there, but that revealed the initial, caused a huge scandal, and the press fed into that as well.
Absolutely.
Albeit, I think there's a lot more wrong with the A1, but anyway. And then, yeah, even with the HK-A2 rifle in Afghanistan, that same sort of sand from the same place, causing havoc. And even the best, most reliable, most rugged modern service rifle needs at least twice daily cleaning to get around this.
Absolutely. So they tried to develop the rifle to make it easier to clean as well. Arbuthnot called it impalpably fine sand. And he said some of the rifles that's returned from the Sudan are filled with an impalpably fine sand, so much to impede the action.
I love that turn of phrase.
Impalpable, it's a Victorian word from Mr. Arbuthnot himself.
We should bring that back, actually.
So we've gone forward to, one interesting thing is now they changed the rifling type.
Oh, so already with this one?
Absolutely. So,
okay.
So the original Henry rifling of its type, the original Henry rifling is a 7-groove rifling, which is a development by Alexander Henry, which is basically a polygonal rifling.
Very in fashion again today, by the way.
Absolutely. And of course, but the 402 had a ratchet rifling. And the ratchet rifling was a spiral ratchet.
Ratchet.
A ratchet.
So in effect, it was originally 9-groove, but they reduced it to 7.
We'll show you this on screen. It's probably easier.
And the idea was it made it easier to clean. There's less flat spots in the ratchet rifling than there was in Henry rifling. So they also developed it to make the rifle easier to clean.
Okay.
De facto, they said it was easier to repair. A lot of rifles had come back with pitting or scratches in the bore. And the way of cleaning, doing a rifle barrel is called lapping. That's pouring molten lead down the barrel to create a lap. And then you'd withdraw that lap and cover it with a fine kind of emery and oil powder, which acts as like an abrasive. So they said ratchet rifling was easy to clean. So the 402 had got the latest thoughts on Enfield ratchet rifling.
Interesting. Yeah, so polygonal rifling has made a big comeback. Notably Glock, H&K, not so much in rifles, but certainly in pistols. Ratchet rifling has gone the way of the dodo, though, as far as I'm aware.
Well, it did go by the way of the dodo.
Quite quickly.
Quite quickly.
Yeah.
So we're now looking to develop the rifle, so we're now getting to the perfected arm.
Yep.
Okay. And 1884, the pattern was introduced and perfected, and by 1886 we came up with the final Mark I Enfield Martini, and this is it.
With bonus bayonet.
With bonus bayonet. Now, interesting, it's a sword bayonet.
Should we talk about that first?
Yes.
Before we get it out of the way and avoid me stabbing us in the face?
The main reason for the sword bayonet, 2 things is happening here. First of all is that the socket bayonet had an awful reputation for bending. In reality, it wasn't to do with that. It was to do with the yataghan style bayonets the men was armed with in the desert. They sent them out with the desert with a yataghan rather than the socket bayonet.
And this was general issue, not just
General
NCOs.
issue, yeah, all issue. But the problem was the yataghans, they were already 20 years old when they was issued, when they was converted to suit the Martini. And they served as a form of kind of metal fatigue. So the men was reporting about the bent bayonets, the Bayonet Scandal of 1884. No doubt done by some journalists come back who had seen these bent up like a corkscrew. And actually,
Hashtag not all journalists.
Not all journalists, but so they developed the bayonet for the Martini-Henry, which is the 1886 pattern sword bayonet.
Yep, this has an 86 mark on it, actually.
It does, yep. So that's the original Enfield Martini. Now, interestingly, it's designed to fit under the barrel, not at the side.
Yep.
So the bayonet has now been made to fit underneath in an SMLE style. It doesn't overbalance the rifle.
And the cleaning/clearing rod.
Clearing rod projects through it.
So we'll pop this off. So, lug on the rifle underneath, as you say.
Yep.
Not on the side, as
on the side, yep. So it's now balancing the rifle up nicely.
And we've got this great big clearing rod in the way, and so the bayonet guard, as well as the ring for the muzzle, and a lightning hole here, has this hole for the clearing rod to poke through, as you just saw.
But that created issues in its own right, because in the trials they realised if they got a bend in the clearing rod, you couldn't fit the bayonet.
Yep.
But the pattern itself was to the Enfield Martini bayonet. Most of these, in fact, all of these, when we converted the rifles again, was converted into 450. So then they became the Mark IV 1887 pattern. And what you'll find
so many bayonets on the Martini series.
Absolutely.
I get so confused.
And the big
Luckily,
giveaway.
there's a book.
Yeah, the big giveaway is that on a converted bayonet, you'll see EM, Enfield Martini. They marked them, and there will be a conversion date of 1891. But so they kept the blades, they changed the pommel and the actual guard to suit the later rifle.
Yep.
But so they developed the bayonet with the rifle. And what we've got then is this, which is the 1886. This is the perfected Enfield Martini. This was going to be the rifle of the future. It outshot all European and American firearms in the market in the world at that time. They tested it with a La Boulange chronograph. The only thing that got anywhere near it was the Italian Vitelli. That was the only one that actually got it in terms of velocity. So we've taken from a 1,320 foot per second now to nearly 1,600 foot per second. Still subsonic, but you've increased the velocity now by effectively 25%. The big change.
Yep.
The cartridge itself. Now we're looking, after the Sudan fighting, we realised that the bottle-shaped cartridge that the original 402 was developed for couldn't eject, again, if you put a contaminant in, sand. What we looked at was the French Lebel, which oddly enough was a tapered cartridge. Yeah. So we realised by tapering the cartridge that there's less chance of it jamming and so giving you better extraction. So what they've done...
Same year, of course. French Lebel, 1886, and the new cartridge, absolutely. The new Poudre B. Well, was it not yet? But there's their version of smokeless.
Smoked, yeah.
Pretty much first to the military market. This is directly contemporary with that.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing they changed, the extractor inside. They enlarged the base of the extractor, so when you open the lever, it gives that extra bit of woomph. So we're now directly addressing the issues from the Sudan. Cartridge, less chance of the cartridge for jamming, better extraction qualities. 402 caliber, easier to clean. So the rifle. So we know what's gone on in the Sudan, and we've taken this rifle and we've started to make it better, and it's starting to get rid of all the issues of the rifle. The next thing, one of the big issues, they've got away with this kind of more the complicated.
Decock that?
Yeah, they've got away with the complicated sights. Now you've basically just got a close range flip up battle sight.
Yeah. And there's a set for...
That's kind of 100 yards, well, zeroed at 300. So we've got the development. We know the battle range. We want that rifle to be shooting straight at 300 yards. So you've just got a very close range flip-up sight now.
Yeah, so...
There's a 100 yard zeroed, and then there's a 300 yard zeroed.
And that's rapid 300 as well.
Rapid 300 selection of sighting.
It feels like, I know it's not a direct comparison, but it feels like a throwback to the Baker with its... the 1800 pattern Baker with its two...
Principles exactly the same.
Yeah. But the massive improvement in front of that is a proper... it's not a million miles away from the 51 mini rifle or something.
No.
It's not a
this, though,
technology jump, but
no. But what you have got is a windage adjustable.
sure.
So the original V notch on the Martini, on the V notch, there's a V for sighting. There's 2 platinum lines either side, which would give you a windage adjustment. With the Enfield Martini, what we've then got is an adjustable windage sight now, so it's actually adjustable on the sight itself.
Yeah. So a big stick-up, flip-up ladder like that, although it's old technology, is still perfectly sound.
Perfectly sound,
The
absolutely.
only danger is getting knocked and bent, but that's why soldering is,
And
is a profession.
We've got rid of the long-range dial sight and
Yes.
the flip-down sight. The reason being is that the men said when it was fitted, they couldn't order arms. It got in the way of ordering arms.
It's funny how practical designs on firearms
so you've
can
now
be
got
dictated by tradition.
Absolutely. You've got an
Drill.
extended long-range rear sight now to compensate.
And that is 2,000 yards
2,000
at the
yards.
top.
Yep.
So if we can show you that in a close-up. So let's pull that all the way up to the 2,000 mark. So again, similar to before, we have this, you need the reinforcement across the top, of course. You're then peering through, so you'll see the green of my glove there. That's your rear sight notch at 2,000 yards, which means your muzzle is severely elevated, not as much as, 2,800, oddly enough, because this won't go out that far.
No.
And then just using the conventional front sight. So we'll drop that back down, drop that back down. But still, the very principle of having a battle sight and then an adjustable rear sight in front of it is
sound.
Pretty modern and sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the big feature, safety catch. So
ignoring this big feature.
Ignore that big feature.
We should probably have taken that off, shouldn't we? Never mind.
We'll whip it off.
We'll do that in a moment.
So one of the salient features with the 402 now is there is no cock indicator, traditional Martini-Henry cock indicator. It's been eliminated.
Bearing in mind, things like this are supposed to be operated with authority and elbow grease, but we have to baby them. So coming back to that.
So let's look at the features now.
The first major feature, as you
is
say,
the thumb safety.
Yep.
There is no cocking indicator. It's been eliminated now. So it's got a circular tumbler now.
Yep.
So when you cock the rifle, you've got 2 positions. There's safe and fire. When it's in safety, it lifts the tumbler, the actual tumbler off the tumbler rest. So you can't press the trigger. It simply can't happen. When you put it forward to fire, then the tumbler rest is allowed to sit on the sear. So it is a true safety, but they found it cumbersome in use. But the principle is there. So you can see the cocking indicator is gone, but you've now got a safety catch to engage on the indicator.
So on and off is
you've got the rifle's now cocked
got
already.
To be cocked to apply, presumably.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Now,
like an AR-15.
I always advocate don't dry fire rifles. However, the Enfield Martini and the Mark III breech block was designed to dry fire.
Okay.
Because they found originally they had snap caps to test them. They proved to be ineffective and damaged the bore. So they did. Now, I'm not going to dry fire this. You don't dry fire rifles. It's just one of the things.
But not these ones, anyway.
What I would do is put the trigger, the lever forward, which now sits the sear clear of the rest. So I couldn't misfire this rifle.
Yeah.
So the principle is still the same. It's just holding up the trigger there. So you drop it back to fire.
Yeah.
You'd fire the arm and it would go off. And then, we'll release these springs on that.
So a perfectly logical way to do it. Just do it again. Up for on.
Yeah.
So when you're ready to shoot, it's a very intuitive, knock it down and pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Very good design, actually.
Very good design.
Maybe a bit snaggable.
Yeah, that's one of the issues they found with it. But the safety is now, so everything's right about the rifle now. We're eliminating all the problems that they're getting. So we've got easy loading, better sighting, hand protection, easier, quicker sight adjustability, better bayonet configuration, same heat dissipation of the barrel. But the key feature is
Now, what are we calling this? Are we calling this a quick loader?
Yeah, the Enfield called it a quick loader. It is the Enfield design. However, the original prototype was sent in by a Danish officer by the name of Kranker. Now, he developed one very, very similar to this, which used a clip, which the spring with the pin which held the breech block on, held it. They found it slipped, but the principle was still the same. It was a a box magazine with a spring in it.
Yeah.
So you would feed the cartridges in, and the spring would then feed the cartridges back towards you.
Yep.
So what Enfield took that idea and developed it to the Enfield loader. What you can see there, it's just got a sprung-loaded cam, and there's a little trapdoor on the top which you'd slide open. You would then feed your cartridges in 4 or 5 at a time.
So we have I think I have a spare.
Might not go in that because that's for this is for the
Well, we
402.
won't put it in, but just to sort of indicate.
Yeah, you would slide it in, each
go
one into the top, and that hopper then that's kind of a side-loaded hopper. And the idea was with this is that you wouldn't carry it on the rifle. The man would have it on his release equipment, loaded, ready. So you've got an instant at the ready snap. When you would always fire to order. But when the kind of officer fell into an amorphous heap of sunburn and the camels were coming towards you and you decided you need to have a bit of a blast vest, you would take the magazine off, clip it to the side of your rifle, and then you could feed it very quickly. So it's a bit like the Hartson quick loader, but less complicated.
Far less complicated, lighter. It's not attempting to dump the cartridge into the open breech like the Harston does. It's just it's like a side saddle shell holder on a lever action or a pump action shotgun.
Shotgun. You could have a strap along the side, and some of the speed loaders that developed were kind of cumbersome things that clipped on the side of the butt. This was the Enfield variant, and oddly enough, the Australians adopted it.
I didn't remember that.
I'd say the Australians ordered 4,000 Mark III rifles from Enfield with the quick loader adapter on it. I've got one in my collection. So the Australians liked the idea of having the speed loader, so they had 4,100 of these delivered. I don't know where they are.
Interesting. But so it's like the opposite of a cut-off, really, is instead of having the magazine built into the weapon but cut off until you're ordered to take the cut-off off, it's the other way around. You take the mag and you clip it onto the weapon when you want to fire at will or fire rapid or whatever. Yeah. Incidentally, similar to the Harston, and I did mention this, I think, at the end of that video, because this is where they were going to go, having trialed some magazine systems, including a weird drum thing on the side that maybe we'll look at one day.
Spool loader, as they called it.
And none of those were satisfactory. This is what they were going to go with. Works similarly to the Harston as far as, well, having a spring, and also this notch to lock the follower at the bottom, so you can drop the rounds in theory.
Takes the pressure off.
But in this case, you wouldn't take all the pressure off and dump them in like a crag or something. No. You would pull it down one, put a round in, pull it down one, put a round in, and then at the bottom you could clip it in to get the last round in, and then clip it out, and that gives you your spring travel, full pressure. Yeah. So it's offering you up a round to pull out and put into the chamber.
Yes.
And it clips on with this tab, which has a rib on it.
Which fits onto the bracket, which is bolted onto the side of the action.
Yep. So we will pop that back on gently. They would obviously do this in theory in a bit of a hurry. This would be shut.
Yep, that would close off.
Putting it on.
Yep.
When you open it up, base of the first round pops out.
Yep.
Withdraw, insert, crack on.
And the idea is not that bad. You often, if you're at the...
not that bad. That's the Neil Aspinshaw endorsement.
It is. If you're at Bisley and you're seeing guys on a 2.2 target shoot, most of them have got 2.2 clip-on brackets, more or less identical to this for speed loading.
Interesting. And I it probably came from you, I'm sure I've seen a photo in British service of the rifle with the bracket. Is that the rifles got issued with brackets ultimately? Is that right?
Yeah, you could actually retrofit. The Australians had them to retrofit.
Maybe it was an Australian photo.
Yeah,
that you sent
the order came to Australia for 4,100 Mark III rifles with 4,100 speed loaders and 4,100 brackets.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've got one in my collection of a Mark III, New South Wales marked, with this bracket on it. So they did adopt them. Absolutely did adopt them.
So in theory, had they gone to war with that system, they would have issued these out. But they presumably didn't in peacetime.
No.
Right.
So this is the 1886, the approved pattern Mark I, in effect, 402 Enfield Martini. This was going to be the service rifle. Arbuthnot loved it. He genuinely did. He had a lecture at the United Services Institute in 1886, and he hailed it as the all-popular rifle. The Enfield had an order to prepare 1,000. They were going to make 1,000 for troop trials, but Arbuthnot was so keen, the production just raced ahead. In fact, the year before, they'd bought the old National Arms Ammunition Factory at Sparkbrook. They converted that purely to make Enfield Martinis. Oddly enough, they offered the contract to BSA and they turned it down. I think they smelt a rat. The rat was certainly there under the table. You could hear it shuffling around.
Okay.
But Arbuthnot didn't know that. So initially they were going to make 1,000. The 1,000 reports came back from the truth trials. They didn't like it. And they didn't like it.
Dear.
There was various things that was coming back that were saying, we don't like this, we don't like that, that's too cumbersome, can we eliminate that?
We fear change.
Yeah, it's a shock of the new. I don't think there's things, they thought it was quite heavy. I mean, this is in effect about 10.5 pounds.
Yeah, I was thinking, so we've established this would be issued this separately, so this shouldn't factor into the all-up weight of the weapon. 5 rounds of even 402 is hefty, as is this, but that's not going to be in your hands for typical use.
No, but the sheer weight.
What makes this heavier?
The barrel profile is the same profile as a 450 barrel, because the machinery was developed to suit the barrel boring machinery. So the barrel blank is exactly the same, which is a benefit. We'll come to that later.
And the action body is supposed to be lighter.
The action body is supposed to be lighter, but the barrel weight, they've taken it from 450 bore now to 402 with the same weight of barrel.
Yeah.
Because the profile is exactly the same.
It's de facto a heavier barrel.
So you've taken it to now from about £9 service rifle to about 10.5. So there was immediate, if you're kind of having to lug this around, the men didn't like it. They thought that the close-up sight was too close. It kind of obscured your view. They said it created blur. The rifle itself was, the actual penetration test and everything, the rifle was fabulous. They even
see what they mean, actually.
Yeah, it's very too close.
Yep. The rear sight is a blur.
So what they were looking to do also is develop the ammunition. So you mentioned the Lebel. So they started trialling these with smokeless rounds. They tried a German powder called Schutzen, which is a nitrated paper. There was a Johnson and Borland powder, which is a British-made powder. And it shot very well with smokeless, oddly enough.
This will be a revelation to some people, but people forget that the Lee Metford was designed for smokeless.
But shot black powder.
Because the smokeless wasn't ready yet.
No.
So they're already looking at smokeless.
Absolutely.
Even on the Martini platform.
Yeah. So they tested it at the Rangers, and actually Evelyn Wood was present when they shot them, and they found it very, very effective. However, there was advocates within the British military establishment which were fighting tooth and nail not to have this arm. One in particular was a particular man that everybody will know by the name of Willis Ellis Metford. Now, Metford had designed his own form of rifling, which target men loved. And Metford rifling was a very shallow groove rifling. And he pushed so hard that they decided to trial the Enfield Martini with Metford rifling. And it shot the pants off the ratchet rifling in every way. Now, Arbuthnot had argued, in actual fact, that the ratchet rifling was easier to clean and easier to lap than Metford rifling. And he resisted to upgrade it, but they tested it and they found that even when the bore of the Metford rifle was enlarged to kind of replicate what would happen after lapping, enlarging the way, it actually shot better.
Oh.
They then tested this against the French rifle. The killer came along with the Swiss Rubin.
Yep.
Then things really started to move fast. A smaller bore, smokeless. This rifle is rapidly becoming obsolete before it was even released. Yep. We're now at 1886. There's 1,000 made, but Arbuthnot said, no, we'll carry on. Production race ahead. Enfield was actually short of work, and it was actually a kind of...
that old story.
Yeah, make sure there's plenty of work going, make millions of these. But the reports are coming back, and they said, yeah, it shoots well, we don't like it, though. Can we revert back to something similar?
So then, a fully developed, improved Martini-Henry, with all of the features that we talked about. Okay, we've got some feedback that the troops aren't 100% happy with it, but this could have been the end of the story, couldn't it? They could have just foisted it upon them and said, this is what you're getting.
Absolutely, and they pressed ahead and they're making them at a phenomenal rate.
We know they effectively have sort of made that decision by carrying on regardless and making more, but there's going to be more to the story, isn't there?
Absolutely.
But we're going to have to leave it there and do a part 2.
Absolutely.
So join us again next time for the continued story of, well, the full Martini-Henry story.
The failed Enfield Martini would be the best part of it.
That seems harsh.
The rifle that never was.
Yeah, one of a few that we've covered on the channel, actually. Yes. But yeah, so the untold story of the Martini-Henry is another way to look at it. But we're going to do a part 2 on that So please do come back and hear the full story next time. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. We do appreciate it. Don't forget to do the usual YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, and if you're able to visit our bricks and mortar museums here in the UK, we've met a number of fans who've managed to make it over here from other countries, and we love it when you do that. If you are here in the UK, we have our summer program going on. Notably, there's a Roman festival, and that's the August bank holiday, but keep an eye out on the website, on social media for anything else that's going on. That, of course, ties in with our Gladiators exhibition, which is underway here at Leeds. And if you're not making it up to Leeds, you can visit our museum at Fort Nelson, of course, and events going on there as well. And you can see our collection at the Tower of London. Also, if you'd like to check out the app and the website, History of Weapons and War, we are a part of that, along with a lot of other really good weapon-related YouTube creators who are also over there, usually offering you something additional to what they do on YouTube. So check that out if you're interested. Whatever you do, you'll see us here again next week.